pleasure to call to order this November 3rd meeting of the James City County Planning Commission. Mr. Holt, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Knoll.
Oh, present.
Ms. Knoll represents the Stonehouse District. Mr. Rose?
Here.
Mr. Rose represents the Roberts District. Ms. Leverins?
Here.
Ms. Leverins is an at-large member. Mr. Polster?
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District. Mr. O'Connor, who's an at-large member and in this year's vice chair, could not be with us this evening. Mr. Kropp?
Here.
Mr. Kropp represents the Powhatan District. Mr. Haldeman?
Here.
Mr. Haldeman represents the Berkeley District and is this year's chair. I'm Paul Holt, Director of Community Development and Planning for the county, and joining us virtually this evening is Mr. Max Halavin, our Deputy County Attorney. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We now have time for public comment. This is a time for anyone who wants to speak to a subject not subject to a public hearing tonight. Each individual will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. Mr. Holt, do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, sir.
No. Would anybody like to address the commission? Hearing none, we'll move on to the reports of the Commission. Development Review Committee, Ms. Knoll.
Mr. Chairman, we did not meet last month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Policy Committee, Mr. Polster.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are determined to be non-controversial. However, a planning commissioner can pull any item for discussion. There is one item for consideration, the minutes, approval of the minutes of the October 6, 2021 regular meeting. Would anyone like to pull this item, or do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll now move on to public hearings. The first one is ordinance, zoning ordinance amendment ORD-20-0015, amendments to address beekeeping in non-residential districts. Ms. Costello, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. On September 8, 2020, the Board of Supervisors approved the keeping of bees in residential districts with performance standards. During the process leading up to that approval, there were discussions about permitting beekeeping in non-residential districts. Additionally, in 2020, the Board of Supervisors adopted an initiating resolution to address this use. Staff conducted research on other localities similar to what was done during the residential districts review. Of the few localities that do permit this use in non-residential districts, the standards were the same for residential and non-residential districts. The Policy Committee met 3 times to discuss the research conducted as well as reviewing the current residential standards. Performance standards were then developed for ground-mounted hives as well as rooftop hives. The draft ordinance requires that properties in these non-residential districts adhere to the standards for residential properties as well as a few additional ones. The additional ones include signage for both rooftop and ground hives, as well as certain distances from the edge of the roof and the requirement of a strapping system for the rooftop. At its September 9th meeting, the Policy Committee unanimously recommended approval of the draft ordinance to the Planning Commission. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Any disclosures? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing. Any questions or discussion? Oh, excuse me, beg your pardon. Any speakers cards? Thank you. Would anybody care to address the commission on this subject? Hearing none, thank you. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of ordinance 20-0015, zoning ordinance amendments to address beekeeping to the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Holt, please call the roll.
Ms. Knoll.
Aye.
Mr. Rose.
Aye.
Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Ms. Leverins.
Aye.
Mr. Kropp.
Aye.
And Mr. Haldeman.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
I'm remiss, I meant to mention this earlier. The third item today is the public hearing for the CCRC Ford's Village on News Road, and the applicant has requested a deferral to the December 1st meeting. So if you're here for that purpose, you're welcome to stay. We are going to open the public hearing, but I think most of the discussion will take place on December 1st. I'm sorry for any inconvenience. Next up, public hearings, special use permit 21-0016, Williamsburg Unitarian Church School. Ms. Costello, you've been busy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Joe Cross of the Williamsburg Unitarian Universalist Church has applied for a special use permit to allow for a school within the existing church located at 3051 Ironbound Road. The property is zoned R8 rural residential and is designated low-density residential and is located inside the primary service area. The church has occupied this facility since January 1997. An SUP was approved in January 2015 to expand the building and the parking area and permit the other two structures as accessory to the church. The school will have a maximum of 30 children and 5 staff members. The age range of the children will be from pre-K through kindergarten. The hours of operation will be from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The hours of instruction will be from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. There will be a few children in daycare before 8:30 and after 3 p.m. The majority of the children will be picked up in a car line similar to other schools and daycares. The school will operate within the current facility and utilize the outdoor play area. Staff finds that this proposal to be compatible with surrounding development and consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the condition in tonight's packet. We did receive one comment from adjacent property owner against the proposal, citing that a public school was nearby with long car lines in close proximity to the church property. I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time, and the applicant is also available. Thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Costello? I just have one, just to be sure. There's no new construction here, right? The school's going to be held in the existing building, in the existing playground?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Any disclosures by commissioners? Not, I'll open the public hearing. Would the applicant like to make a presentation or a statement? Thank you. Speaker's cards, Mr. Holt. Thank you. Would anybody care to address the commission on this subject? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion by commissioners or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of SUP 21-0016 with the attached conditions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holt, please call the roll.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Ms. Leverins?
Aye.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
And Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. The third public hearing for this evening is Z-21-0012 and MP-21-0003, Proffer and Master Plan Amendment for the Continuing Care Retirement Facility at Ford's Colony or Ford's Village. Mr. Wysong, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the Commission. Mr. Vernon Getty has applied on behalf of Fire Development to amend the adopted proffers and master plan for the Continuing Care Retirement Facility at Ford's Colony. The subject parcel is currently located within the primary service area and is designated low-density residential on the adopted comprehensive plan. At this point in the process, the proffers have not been finalized by the applicant. Per the deferral letter in your packet, the applicant has requested a deferral of this case until December 1st to allow additional time to prepare revised proffers. The revised proffer document will assist staff in completing a comprehensive review and evaluation of this proposal. As such, staff concurs with the request for deferral and recommends that the Planning Commission defer this application to the December 1st regular meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I believe the applicant is here with us tonight as well.
Any questions of staff? Any disclosures? If not, I'll open the public hearing. We have time for public comment. You may speak tonight if you want to address this subject, but if you do speak tonight, you won't be able to speak on December 1st. Just to make that clear. Any questions by the commission on the applicant? Would the applicant like to make a presentation, or Mr. Getty? Great, thank you. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to postpone this public hearing until the December 1st meeting. Ms. Null?
Make a motion that we postpone to December 1st meeting, applicants Z-210012 and MP 210003, Proffer and Master Plan Amendment for Ford's Colony.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, that tonight's public hearing you've opened, we will leave that, assuming the motion passes, that public hearing will be left open until your December 1st meeting. And I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to speak tonight or not.
I'll give another opportunity. I think I mentioned it, but if anybody would like to speak this evening, feel free. Thank you.
Again, there's a motion on the floor to postpone this case until your December 1st meeting. Ms. Null?
Aye.
Ms. Leverins?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Mr. Kropp?
Aye.
And Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Planning Commission considerations, there are none. Planning Director's report. Mr. Holt.
Papers, normally I'm a little bit caught up, moving right along tonight. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the currently adopted bylaws of the Planning Commission provide that a quorum of the commission shall consist of a majority of members of the commission and that a physical quorum is required. Notwithstanding, Planning Commission members may participate in any meeting wherein public business is discussed or transacted through electronic communication in accordance with the Code of Virginia. Pursuant to these provisions, the Planning Commission adopted a policy governing remote participation in meetings by commission members due to personal matters or a disability or medical condition, here in reference to as the policy, a copy of which has been included in your agenda packets. The Virginia Code was recently amended during the 2021 General Assembly Special Session 1, such that the policy needs to be amended and readopted to reflect the changes made by the new legislation. Namely, the General Assembly added language allowing for remote participation when a family member's medical condition requires the participant to provide care for such family member, thereby preventing the participant's physical attendance. Legislation also amended the limitation for personal matters to 2 or 25% of the meetings held per calendar year, rounded up to the next whole number, whichever is greater. The proposed revised policy, again, a copy of which has been included in your agenda packets, is in conformance with the new legislation. There are also some minor revisions to clarify certain portions of the policy. Given the updated code reference, the PC bylaws must be updated as well and amended. Procedurally, the bylaws require a minimum 30 days notice and that action be taken at a regularly scheduled meeting. This discussion item tonight is simply to begin that notification period. No votes requested tonight. Certainly, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, any of the above, please feel free to send them directly to Max. I know he'll be more than happy to answer those for you. CC me. We'll make sure you get answers soon enough. Staff would then return to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission in December for action on these items. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Planning Commission discussion and requests? I thought we had left it.
I was going to do both, so,
Beg your pardon.
certainly, that's okay. Either one. For the items included in tonight's Planning Director's report, I don't have anything additional, but would welcome any questions on that portion of the report of the agenda packet.
Questions? Thank you very much.
All right. So lastly, as part of tonight's Planning Commission discussion and request, as a discussion of the final Planning Commission Working Group meeting. At the request of the Planning Commission Chair, this item is on the agenda tonight to allow commissioners to provide guidance to staff on the structure of the November 10th PCWG agenda. At that meeting, staff will be prepared to provide a brief update, which really consists of the board discussion outcomes. We've included those in a preview email to you previously, along with the final vote. Comp plan's now officially updated. But otherwise currently don't have any additional presentations or substantive updates to provide at that meeting. Rather, staff envisions the November 10th meeting to simply be a time for the PCWG to reflect on the 2045 update process and to solicit general feedback on what went well and what might be helpful to change or fine-tune in future comprehensive plan update processes. Staff would therefore recommend a short agenda. We've provided a draft in your packets tonight. Again, would really include a short update by staff, and the remainder of the time would be set aside for PCWG member discussion. Again, about what went well, what iterative process improvements you'd like to see moving forward. It always helps to have those notes now, because 5 years will be here quick before any of us know it for sure. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you all in the commission for any discussion.
Thank you. On my own behalf, I just asked staff to prepare this because I didn't want us to just all show up and start speaking off the cuff. I think the draft or the memorandum prepared by Mr. Holt says it very well. Would anybody like to add anything to this process, or we don't want to get into re-editing the comprehensive plan or anything. It's just simply an after-action report, I guess, is what the military would call it. And I think it's a great idea. I think it was Mr. O'Connor's idea, and it was a good one. So we'll see you all on the 10th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
I wanted to put this in writing a couple times. I'm just as much interested from the staff perspective about what went well in this process, since it was a new process for everyone in terms of the modeling. And so that sort of feedback is, to me, just as important as what we have to say.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. O'Connor suggested that we provide some kind of input by the 5th, by this Friday. Is that still something that is recommended in terms of our comments?
I do recall that, and I've forgotten it. Does that sound like a good idea to everybody?
I gave you mine twice.
I have thoughts. I won't be able to get them on paper by Friday. I'd rather bring them to the meeting and discuss them.
Okay.
And I also think that discussion sometimes can help us to articulate better what we're thinking.
Okay.
So in order to meet our public advertising requirements, we've got to publish the packet tomorrow. Just so we can get the information out there for the public, since this is a public meeting. What we'll probably do, unless you tell me otherwise here tonight, we'll probably go ahead and use the agenda as suggested in the packet tonight. Again, just a placeholder, kind of rough. You know, at the end of the day, if you get us as whatever you can, as soon as you can, staff wants to make sure we're prepared. Again, we're not anticipating putting together big presentations. It really is designed to be an opportunity for PCWG. So for the 8 of you all to discuss and provide some of that good feedback for sure.
Thank you. Set. The only other thing under Planning Commission discussion is Board of Supervisor coverage for this month is Ms. Null. All set. And I have nothing else on the agenda. Anything else? Hearing none, I'll gladly entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.